Hong Kong Monetary Authority's faster payment system will connect with the mainland's internet banking payment system next year. The financial secretary flies to Saudi Arabia to attend a future investment initiative event. And Japan's ruling coalition loses a majority in the lower house. Hello, happy Monday. I'm Melissa Hekalea, and this is TVB News. The Hong Kong Monetary Authority announced today its faster payment system will connect to the mainland's internet banking payment system next year. Mimo Singhai reports.
The government mentioned in the policy address that Hong Kong and the mainland will promote the interconnection of cross-border fast payment systems, FPS and IBPS. The purpose of this is to improve real-time small-value transactions between the two places. Addressing the media today, Eddie Yu, the chief executive of the HKMA, said the project will be launched in the middle of next year. He said the interconnection will allow users to make payments 24/7, to settle small-value payments immediately, and to transfer transactions with a phone number. While FPS and IBPS are similar, an e-payment technology and cross-border investment experts said individuals need to beware of certain limitations before initiating a transaction.
In Hong Kong, I think the limitations can be higher, the limits of a transaction, whereas I think in terms of the IBPS, it's a hard limit, at least locally in China, of a 1 million RMB. Because China have currency controls, so it's going to be a balance on, will this limit be at 1 million RMB when it links to the Hong Kong FPS network?
However, Haralela added the interconnection could have a big impact.
Not just in the corporate B2B world, but more in terms of also the B2C world. Could Alipay before pay Alipay China? Could WeChat Pay Hong Kong pay WeChat Pay China? You're now being able to make these payments direct from the bank account without essentially using intermediary apps in the middle.
Means 9, TVB News.
Secretary for Security Chris Tang noted the mandatory guidelines on the Safeguarding National Security Ordinance, which are set to be rolled out for public servants next year, is meant to be referenced. He stressed authorities will not set up a punishment mechanism. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Under the latest policy address, public servants carrying out their duties must adhere to the requirements of the Safeguarding National Security Ordinance, while guidelines for the ordinance will be released in the first half of next year. This, as Secretary for Security Chris Tang said, the guidelines will be written in plain wording and include examples of how public servants should live out the spirit of safeguarding national security through their daily work. He emphasized the government does not aim to punish their employees with this measure. The policy address also introduced a 3-tier prevention framework for counterterrorism purposes before the end of the year. It will be headed by the Chief Executive, Secretary for Security, and an interdepartmental task force who will conduct counterterrorism research and enforcement work. Tang said the task force was created as authorities hope to adapt to current international anti-terrorism standards. Meanwhile, regarding the trial use of facial recognition technology in the Sha Tau Kok border area later this year, the security chief noted he will look into using the Lok Ma Chau loop as another trial location. But he emphasized there are currently limitations on applying the technology to more than 7 million residents in the city, and that there are challenges to use facial recognition tech at all border checkpoints. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Financial Secretary Paul Chan set off for Saudi Arabia today to attend the 8th edition of the Future Investment Initiative. The secretary took the first direct Cathay Pacific flight from Hong Kong to Riyadh in around 7 years after the route resumed operations. Mimo Singhai reports.
Cheers! From today, Hong Kong residents can take direct flights from the city to the Saudi Arabian capital, Riyadh. After the flight route was suspended for more than 7 years, Cathay Pacific will now operate 3 flights to Riyadh per week. Financial Secretary Paul Chan was among the passengers who took the first flight since its resumption to Saudi Arabia this afternoon.
This symbolizes a more frequent and direct people-to-people flow and also trade and cargo flows between the two regions. Cathay Pacific will be increasing its service to this region. From our perspective, from the Belt and Road Initiative, from the Hong Kong standpoint of opening up new markets, attracting new sources of capitals, new sources of investment, this is an important move.
Chen and a delegation of representatives from the finance, innovation and technology sectors are heading to Saudi Arabia to attend the 8th edition of the Future Investment Initiative. The financial secretary said authorities hope the trip will help facilitate greater cooperation between the Middle East and the city's finance and INT sectors. Minus 9, TVB News.
Japan's ruling coalition has lost its lower house majority after Sunday's House of Representatives election. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba said he would take responsibility for the loss and pledged to launch fundamental reforms regarding the economy and politics. Danny Zhou has the story.
In Sunday's snap parliamentary election, Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party, or LDP, and its coalition partner Komeito together won 215 seats in the 465-member House of Representatives. That's way below the threshold for a majority. The ruling coalition has suffered its worst result since 2009. And Shinjiro Koizumi, the LDP's election committee chief, reportedly submitted a letter of resignation. A local business owner said in an interview that he was not at all surprised by the fiasco and guessed the LDP were knocked out by their slush fund scandal. This as public support for the ruling party fell to 20% earlier this year. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, who took office on October the 1st, accepted what he called the extremely harsh verdict from the public. While urging his party to reflect upon the result and be reborn, Ishiba said he would continue to serve as Prime Minister to address the economic and security challenges. The LDP will still lead a ruling coalition, he noted, and it is open to cooperate with opposition groups. Meanwhile, Ishiba reiterated his hardline defense policy, pledging a new plan for the Japan self-defense forces and a stronger cooperation with the US. The largest opposition party, the Constitutional Democratic Party, won 148 seats, up from 98 seats previously. Its leader, Yoshihiko Noda, rejoiced over the coalition doubling. This is not the end, but the beginning, Noda told a news conference today. He said the election has seen the emerge of smaller parties, and he planned to work with other parties to press for a change of government. According to Kyodo News, the Japanese government and the incumbent ruling bloc are planning to hold a special parliament session on November the 11th to vote on the prime minister post. If a new leader is elected, Ishiba is likely to become Japan's shortest-living prime minister since World War II. It is reported that he will remain in office at least until the key budget plan is approved by the end of December. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
This year is dubbed by many as the year of TikTok. The popular social media platform is on the verge of being banned by the U.S. government. But it was also dragged into the presidential election politics as candidates tried to use it to register young voters. Danny Zhou again.
Hello, good morning, New York.
Silvana is American and she's an avid user of TikTok. She said the short video sharing platform has gained popularity in America over the recent years.
She seems like she's actually a really nice person.
It's not for only teenagers. My mom, she really enjoyed the platform.
The app hit 150 million monthly active users in the United States last year. And over 30% of the users who are 18 to 29 years old say they frequently use it to keep track of the latest news. Its enlarging community is depicted as a new battleground for this year's election, as many candidates took to TikTok to connect with voters, especially the younger ones.
In Springfield,
Silvana uses TikTok quite often for election updates, but she questioned the content, saying they were sometimes exaggerated and untrue.
You know, in TikTok, we have too many videos. People catch of different videos from different platforms and they're editing.
A US research center said in a report that the biggest risk of the 2024 election lies in the misinformation spread by social media platforms like TikTok.
Social media is like an amplifier, and you can amplify destructive messages. If people believe that the election in this country will not be free and fair, then they may be less likely to vote at all. False information of that sort can be very damaging.
TikTok has pledged to combat false and misleading information, and videos with unverified content will be tagged to ensure fairness in the election. Some scholars argue the power of TikTok has been overstated.
When President Trump said Haitian immigrants were eating cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio, he didn't need social media to spread that. Traditional media did that all by themselves. TikTok does not use AI to make propaganda and misinformation. People do. So it's not TikTok's fault.
He also pointed out those platforms were able to tailor the content for users with big data and algorithm. The mechanism seems to contribute to increasing polarization, making it more difficult to mediate conflict and heal divisions in American society. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
With just over a week to go until Election Day in the United States, polls show Democratic candidate Kamala Harris and Republican candidate Donald Trump neck and neck in battleground states that decide the election. Harris spent Sunday in Pennsylvania visiting voters at a church, bookstore, barbershop, restaurant, and basketball court. Trump headlined a rally at New York's Madison Square Garden, promising to launch a deportation program from day one of his presidency, while his allies disparaged Harris and certain sectors of the community. Tracy Furness reports.
Donald Trump took to the stage Sunday night at New York's Madison Square Garden, asking the audience a now familiar question.
Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
Trump spoke repeatedly about his plans to halt illegal immigration.
After years of building up foreign nations, defending foreign borders and protecting foreign lands, we are finally going to build up our country, defend our borders, and protect our citizens. It's called America First, and it's going to happen at levels never seen before. We're bringing back the American dream, and we're going to bring it back at the highest level that you've ever seen.
Speaking alongside Trump, a stand-up comedian performed lewd jokes and invoked racist stereotyping.
I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Kamala Harris called out the remark and outlined her plans for the U.S. territory as she continued her tour around Philadelphia in Pennsylvania.
I'm going to create basically an opportunity economy task force for Puerto Rico. And specifically focused on two things. One, bringing the private sector with nonprofits with the Puerto Rican leadership around and the federal government around focusing on what we need to do around building economic opportunity on the island as an extension of the overall plan for an opportunity economy.
At a rally in Philadelphia later in the day, Harris told voters, "We must not wake up the day after the election and have any regrets about what we could have done in these next 9 days. So let's spend these next 9 days knowing we did everything we could." Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Still ahead, Egypt proposes a 2-day ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. A Chinese company exports electric buses and technicians to Greece. And the first ever Shatin Cycling Festival this coming Sunday. Welcome back. Egypt is proposing a 2-day ceasefire between Israel and Hamas with a release of 4 hostages. Another mediator, Qatar, is holding talks with Israeli and U.S. officials as efforts to stop the war and ease simmering tensions between Israel and Iran continue. Israeli forces continue to hit militant targets in Lebanon and Gaza. David Garrett reports.
Women weeping while children look on, too young to understand what happened. People gathered outside a school-turned-shelter following an Israeli airstrike. Civil defense teams carry out bodies, the dead numbered 11. The center of the building was flattened, rubble strewn in all directions. There was evidence of clothes and bedding, and a witness said displaced people had taken refuge here and some are now martyrs. Rescue efforts continued some time after the strike, desperate people with mallets trying to break concrete walls in the hope of finding those who may have been trapped. Israel's military did not comment on this strike, but have said Hamas hide within such shelters. The IDF did release footage of troops claiming to raid Hezbollah bunkers in southern Lebanon. They say soldiers eliminated dozens of terrorists above and below ground as they took weapons from a compound in a forest. Further north in Lebanon, sirens wail in the distance as smoke billows from a building in Sidon on the coast. Debris and smashed glass across the street. Lebanese media say it's the first time Israel and Hezbollah have battled here as Israel widens attacks on the Iranian-backed group. Israel carried out its first open attack on Iran 2 days ago. Strikes were retaliation for an earlier Iranian missile attack. The two most powerful men in Iran have spoken but gave little away as they weigh up a response. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei appeared to strike a balance when he said the bombing should not be exaggerated or downplayed. He spoke to bereaved families and said Israel may have miscalculated Iran's power without expanding on what that could mean. And more violence within Israel. One person was killed and 40 injured in what police called a terrorist attack by an Arab citizen of Israel. The driver of the truck was shot dead after ploughing into a bus at a stop, causing chaos near Mossad headquarters north of Tel Aviv. The head of that intelligence agency is in Doha for peace talks with Qatar's Prime Minister and the head of America's CIA. David Garrett, TVB News.
Former Bolivian President Evo Morales claimed he survived an assassination attempt on Sunday after unidentified men opened fire on his car. Gunshots are seen on the windscreen of the car. Morales was not injured, alleging the shots were fired while he was being driven in the coca leaf-growing region of Chapare, the ex-president's rural stronghold. Morales emerged unscathed from the alleged attack, appearing on his weekly radio show in his usual calm manner to recount what happened. He said his driver was injured after hooded men fired at least 14 shots. Morales led Bolivia from 2006 until 2019. The president of Georgia, Salome Zurabichvili, has urged citizens to take to the streets tonight to protest over election results that are likely to steer the country away from Europe and towards Russia. Standing with opposition leaders who lost the election to Georgian Dream, the president, whose powers are mainly ceremonial, said the country was the victim of a Russian operation that stole votes. Opposition parties reject the election results. European election monitors said they had seen intimidation of voters. The ruling party won 55% of the vote. The EU has already suspended Georgia's accession to the bloc because Brussels says the ruling party has limited freedom of speech. Greece is among the world's countries with a policy shifting to the use of electric public transport. But that challenge is compounded by factors such as the country's climate and terrain. This as a Chinese company is exporting its electric buses and technicians to assist the Balkan country. Timothy Lee reports.
Buses are the norm for most Greeks when it comes to public transport, but many of these vehicles are in poor condition. Many of them lack even basic functions such as air conditioning. Comfort aside, the diesel-powered buses are a major source of pollution. In recent years, the Greek government has strengthened efforts to push for the development of new energy vehicles in the country. But the search for suitable electric replacements was not always easy. Owing to the country's mountainous terrain, the vehicle's electric batteries must reach a certain capacity in order to carry large numbers of passengers. In a bid to solve this problem, the Greek government purchased 250 electric buses from a Chinese company in October last year, with the vehicles gradually entering into service. The Chinese buses may look plain on the outside, but it's the interior components that impress the passengers.
这里面包括有24小时的电池监控。
Ma Jiabo, a regional manager of electric bus company, said the vehicles come with a 24-hour battery monitoring system, adding that the batteries were made with multiple layers of heat-resistant materials to ensure smooth operation in different environments. And these are all air-conditioned buses. Besides the hardware, the Chinese company also deployed its technicians to Greece to train the locals. Ma said the company will continue to provide more advanced technologies to the Greek partners, such as charging stations and smart management systems. He emphasized that we'll continue to work with other countries in Europe to promote more Chinese electric vehicles to the international community. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The first ever Shatin Cycling Festival will be held on Sunday. A total of 11 cycling events will be held on Sunday morning, including a professional road circuit race. Almost 1,000 people have so far signed up to take part in the festival. Organizers hope the event will help boost the popularity of cycling in the city. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.